And that's a whole nother thing. Like that's a whole nother very specific thing. But then at the same time, it's like I chased trying to do heavy weight on arms. I did it for a long time. Guess what I got from it? Elbow pain.
Yeah.
Shifting to a higher rep range and getting a little bit more pumpy with it, my arms grew and my elbows didn't hurt. So like, how can you tell me that I'm wrong? Like it just doesn't make sense. It's so hyperbolic.
I mean, the argument to be made is if you're lifting with consistent execution under full control, you shouldn't run into those issues. The problem with that argument is that if you're off by an inch, you're off by a mile. I've squatted 750 pounds probably 30 plus times in my life.
Just going to mention that's insane.
Well, the one time I fucked it up, I tore both my quads. Okay.
You thought I was bluffing where you at. I came here for vengeance, watch your back. No need to defend, I'm on attack. Sorry they can't reply, but I guarantee they had a blast. Pop, 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 I be on the next to only ya. I am fresh to death.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Long Haul Mentality. And y'all have seen Paul before, but this is my buddy Pauloneid, just coming fresh off a move from Canada down to North Carolina, my old stomping grounds. Thanks for making the hopping on here while you're getting settled and everything.
Dude, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. You know, you've been on the podcast a couple of times on my podcast, and you know, our conversations are always great. So having another opportunity to chat and catch up, I would never say no.
Yeah, I always enjoy these for sure. We always get into some just random stuff.
Oh yeah.
But kind of already talked a little bit about how you're enjoying North Carolina and whatnot so far. Mm-hmm. So how are you feeling like that's translating into like work and whatnot, your life, all that fun stuff?
I mean, initially the time commitment to the administrative side of moving has kind of taken the forefront, but saying no to a lot of things to focus on clients. Cause to me, that's most important is I need to make sure that my people are taken care of. But now that we're settled and, things are moving in the right direction, I'm excited to ramp things up. And I don't know about you, but I find it, I don't know. So the gym that we're training at, and maybe this is a great way to start. The gym that we're training at is called Core 24. Mm-hmm. Super nice gym, spotless. It's got some pretty good kit, but as like someone who's a bit particular about pieces of equipment, there's stuff that I like and I don't like and that's missing. The gym owner is super receptive to it, but that's great. But I'm definitely the old guy. Like I'm by far and away one of the older people in that
How
gym.
How old are you again?
I'm 37.
Yeah, you and Brittany are the same age.
Yeah, so it is a bit odd, and I'm not the most approachable person when I'm.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm super nice. Like I'm super nice, but I know I have a resting bitch face. I'm also like 240 pounds, covered in tattoos. So, and I train hard. So I'm trying to say hi to people, and like if I'm gonna work in with somebody, I always introduce myself, like the little stuff. But I think it's gonna take some time to actually develop a friend group down here. So it's just been me and my wife, which has honestly been awesome.
Yeah, I was talking to I signed up an online client who's also doing like the mentorship thing, and we talked in person at the gym the other day, and he started asking about the in-person training and stuff, and wanting feedback on his training at like as he was doing it, that kind of thing. I was like, dude, honestly, I just can't right now. It's like I'm finally stepped away from in person, and like now the gym has been really exciting for me again because like it's my an hour and a half to just shut off, put my headphones in, and just zone out into some people screaming in my ears and just like enjoy myself a little bit. And it's that one time that I get to just let everything go. And I know that I look evil. I look mean when I'm training. I'm just like zoned out. I'm like headbanging to something ridiculous and covered in tattoos now. I definitely understand how that is, but most people know me there, so I can understand how the being the new guy at a gym.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's kind of fun. I still get the looks because like I might be old. I'm not old, but I'm older than them. But I'm still like, I'm the only one throwing around the 150s and like jeans and stuff like that. So That's kind of cool. I guess
Yeah.
I still got it, you know.
Yeah, so you can still bring it and keep up with them a little bit at least.
Dude, I'm gonna do a show in August.
That's awesome, dude. I'm
Yeah,
excited for it.
I'm gonna do my second show. Well, that's the plan. As long as Liv's prep is going well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is her pro debut season. So,
She's
I
put
mean,
on some size, so I'm excited for that.
dude, she's gonna look nutty.
Yeah, she's
I'm
got some
excited.
legs, man. That's great for wellness. So
Yeah,
I'm definitely excited to see that. What show is she gonna do?
she's gonna do the Heart of Texas, so it'll be down your way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and then the week after, she's gonna do Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anybody in that show, but all my prep clients are like at the end of the year this year. It's a more calm year with prepping this year, but so anyways, like you talked about this already. We've already done a number of podcasts, and most of the time we get into some good conversation about training. So I've been having some things bounce around in my head that I think that we would have a good conversation on. And for anyone who has been following recently on Instagram, there's the videos I've been putting out have been kind of poking fun at this thing that is going around the internet right now that is extremely fascinating to me because we've seen this shift where people are talking about, hey, we have to manage fatigue and like make sure that it's in the appropriate levels, to now that turning into like fatigue is the enemy. And it is one of the most mind-boggling things that I've seen come around in the sport. So have you been seeing this trend at all? Is this something that you've been aware of as well?
Oh, absolutely. And so I look at it a few different ways. I look at it from the social experiment perspective to say, I really don't think it's a bad thing for people to look for the best way to accomplish a task, which ultimately that's what this is, right? It's like, what is the optimal training?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is the best way to accomplish this task? But then the next level down from that has to be, what's the best way to accomplish this task within my current limitations? Then you have to take into account the skill set of the individual. And then from there, the other lifestyle variables stack up on top of it. I also look at it from the perspective of science because, you know, I have 2 master's degrees and one of them being exercise science. And if you are familiar with exercise science, you are familiar with the fitness fatigue theory, which is in order to accumulate fitness, which in this case is an adaptation, you have to accumulate fatigue. Fatigue is synonymous with stimulus. So if I'm able to accumulate more fatigue, I have the potential to acquire more stimulus. Fatigue, fitness. So that begs the question of, shouldn't we be trying to find ways to do the most rather than the least?
100%. Yep.
So that to me is where the curiosity pokes in of like, is this a psychological trend where people are looking for perhaps the easy way out? And I don't think that's the case. I maybe I'm naive, but I don't think people are looking for the easiest way out. I think they're just confused. And I think they're confused by the messages that they're being told, because ultimately these narratives are being perpetuated by people with very large followings.
Yep.
That's not me.
Nope.
So sometimes I feel as though I'm yelling into the void, right? I'm yelling into the void, but at the same time, I am speaking to an audience of close to 10,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%.
So if I can speak about the things that I think are important to those 10,000 people, and then that gets more conversations going, great. But that's kind of the two sides of the coin I look at. I'm like, okay, we're trying to find the best way to accomplish a task. But if we look at fitness fatigue, well, let's try to get the most fatigue possible so that I could eat more food and get more adaptation and recover better. Maybe they don't think they can recover. Maybe they have this, preconceived notion that recovery is hard to come by, or that their HRV dipping by 2 points is going to mean that they get cancer.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's definitely interesting because like I made the joke yesterday on this exact thing, and some guy commented talking about like, oh, I agree and I disagree, but like we should aim for 8 because like why not? And because of mechanical tension, I'm like, well, you do realize that like if the goal is mechanical tension, you're going to create fatigue. Like we're going to be doing something that's difficult. Like you're not going to create mechanical tension by doing something that's not hard. Like we've all grabbed something that's way too light and you're like, I can't feel this at all. I can't do anything here because it's just, there's not enough there. Your muscle is too strong for that. So like this thing of like, well, don't go above 8 reps because you're going to accumulate too much fatigue. It's like, do you think that a weight that you can get for 8 reps is not going to fatigue you too much? Like, what are you talking about?
I think it's
like,
what's going on, everyone? Going to take a quick break from the podcast and check in with my main man, Everett, here. You can see the red light on behind me. That just means one thing. We're going to promote some sponsors right quick. There are no paid sponsors or paid ads for this podcast. So anyone who's watching, I appreciate your support. I appreciate your time. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Share this podcast with your friends. Leave a comment. It does help a ton. The other thing you can do is help support the sponsors that work with me. And you see I have my Labrada Pro Series line here. So we've got the hydro, glutamine, creatine, and EAAs with some new pre-workout on the way. So if you like the podcast, you support me, use my code BAGLEY10 at checkout and get yourself a discount. Let's get back to the episode.
It's an oversimplification, man, because
always,
if we're just talking about mechanical tension, that's only one aspect of human movement, right? We're ignoring the neurological aspect of training. We're ignoring the biochemical aspect of training. We're ignoring the metabolic aspect of training. We're ignoring, potential orthopedic issues that the client is running into.
Yep.
We're running into so many different secondary and tertiary things when we narrow ourselves down into 8 reps. It's like, well, maybe 8 reps. Like if I was going to do a set of 8 reps on a leg press, for example, that's going to be a lot of plates.
Yeah.
And I just tore both of my quads 9 months ago.
Yep.
So is that the optimal way to train for me? And that's what gets lost when we try to dial in on one variable. That those other things matter. The way that I look at the human body, I was talking to Danny Lamartina about this, like the human body is an interconnected system of systems. You cannot look at something through such a narrow lens and truly believe that you have it all figured out.
100%. And that's my biggest issue with the quote unquote science-based community, because like I think that you and I would both consider the other to be relatively science-based, right? Like you're going based off things that make sense, right? That are drivers to hypertrophy. But this like cult-like thing of like the gods of science have written a new study and it says that 8 reps is the most you should do or else you'll accumulate too much. It's like, bow down. This is the answer to everything. It's like, why does it need to be that? Like, that's great data. Awesome. I'm really glad to see that we can see that we get a really good response at 8 reps without being super fatiguing. If that happens, fantastic, right? But the thing is like, let's extrapolate that. Like, if you're saying that every single exercise you do, you're going to 8 reps, in the reality of most humans who are in our space, when they start trying to chase single digit rep numbers on a regular basis, it goes from hypertrophy training into strength training, because they're going to go 1 week and they're going to go, I'm feeling really fucking good today. And last week I got 8 with this and I'm going to slap a quarter on here and I'm going to see what I can get. And the next thing you know, they get 4. They get 5. And then they're like, all right, well, I got 5. I can do that again next week and get 6. And it's like, well, why? What are we doing here? Like, pull that back a little bit to where you don't have to use so much weight that now also puts you at a risk of more injury, and like do some extra reps. It's not going to kill you. You're going to be fine. Like,
well, and then, I mean, returning to my thought about like secondary and tertiary adaptations here, those same people who are going to make evidence-based arguments in one way or the other. Hey, buddy.
Hi.
In one, make evidence-based arguments in one way or the other. They'll say, oh, well, tempo is stupid because you miss out on stretch-mediated hypertrophy. I'm like, okay, but you're also missing out on developing tendon resilience if we're not performing isometrics. And we're missing out on developing oxidative capacity, which is going to allow us to improve our ability to metabolize the food that we're eating into the energy that we're going to use to recover from training. We're also looking at, systemic versus localized fatigue. We're also looking at central versus peripheral fatigue with high reps versus low reps. There's so many other things going on within our training. And when you look at those people who have, kind of shown in real time, we look at the Olympians, right? Those people on the Olympia stage, you've got guys like Hunter who are performing very heavy loads. He's usually within that like 6 to 12 rep range for the most part. And then you've got guys on the other end of the spectrum, like a Samson Dauda, who won Mr. Olympia, who primarily trains very high volume, uses a ton of supersets and giant sets, trains like a Milo Sarchev style. So if you look at the Mr. Olympia and then you look at the second place, third place, fourth, they all train differently.
Yep.
So to make an argument that there is one way to train that will accomplish hypertrophy, to me, that's just intellectually dishonest. Then we can get into the argument of what's going to be best for most people most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have my attention, because that's a conversation that we can get behind. And if you were to ask, I'll ask you the question. What is the most important variable within someone's training for you?
Progress. I mean, are they getting results?
Right. And you're not going to get results if you're not having fun doing what you're doing.
100%.
So if you don't like training heavy and you prefer doing giant sets, well, how do we make those giant sets as productive as possible?
100%, man. And the thing, it tells me a lot about an individual when they want to argue like just a one, like you mentioned all these other things and they're like, yeah, but this, and they keep coming back to that same thing. It's like, oh, well, you're not willing to have a conversation. This isn't like an intellectual discussion about something that could make us get better. You are attached to this idea because this is what you think is the right answer. And the unfortunate thing is the right answer is a moving target. Mm-hmm. It's never a stagnant thing. It is something that is constantly shuffling and can shuffle every single day, every hour, depending on the situation the individual is in. Like, it's always something that's going to have to change. So it's like, why would we go all in on this scientific study that's very one-dimensional? There's a lot of things that you can't control. It's typically not in a population of people like us that are bodybuilders that are even if you're someone who is above average muscle tissue trying to get more than above average muscle tissue, like, and you're not looking to get on stage, like, they're not studying those people. I've never gotten a phone call to do a study, right? So it's like, there's so many aspects to those studies that we can't control that don't have anything to do with the real world. And the biggest thing, the one point that you made there is like Hunter, right? Like, let me go tell Hunter to do 8 reps on something. First off, can we get enough plates, right? And second, why? He already has injuries and things that could potentially cause problems, to where if he is constantly chasing, I'm not saying that he can't do an 8 rep set every once in a while, but if that's what he chases every single time and the only metric is, well, I got 8, that means I need to go up, he's going to run into hurting something, and potentially hurting something so bad that it ends his career, right? And that's a whole nother thing. Like, that's a whole nother very specific thing. But then at the same time, it's like, I chased trying to do heavy weight on arms. I did it for a long time. Guess what I got from it? Elbow pain.
Yeah.
Shifting to a higher rep range and getting a little bit more pumpy with it, my arms grew and my elbows didn't hurt. So, like, how can you tell me that I'm wrong? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's so hyperbolic.
I mean, the argument to be made is, if you're lifting with consistent execution under full control, you shouldn't run into those issues. The problem with that argument is that if you're off by an inch, you're off by a mile. I've squatted 750 pounds probably 30 plus times in my life.
Just going to mention that's insane.
Well, the one time I fucked it up, I tore both my quads. Okay. I've squatted 814 times in my life.
Also insane.
Never fucked it up, never hurt myself. So like that to me is making the argument that you're trying to make, right? It's like if I keep chasing loads, the risk associated with those loads goes up exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
So then you ask yourself, how do I get that proximity to failure? You either increase the number of repetitions with lighter weights, because we know that hypertrophy occurs over a very large number of rep ranges, or you increase the time it takes to perform each one of those reps. And that's to me where the magic has been, especially in exploring different training methodologies during my recovery process, has been how can I make these weights as hard as possible without progressing the load?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tremendous amount to be gained from isometric training, tempo training,
100%.
adding accommodating resistance to stuff, implementing different intensification strategies in an intelligent way. These are all things that we can include in our training that may increase fatigue. But if we want to create a stimulus, we have to accumulate fatigue. In order to get the adaptation, we have to recover from that fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I have this concept that I spoke about a lot back in the day, and I kind of find myself revisiting it. So usually when we talk about auto-regulation, we talk about auto-regulation from the perspective of modifying training to accommodate lifestyle. I try to push my clients to accommodate lifestyle to push training, especially when it comes to, and we do this kind of by virtue of entering into competition preps, whether it be a powerlifting prep, bodybuilding prep, or some sort of like structured dieting phase or off-season phase, where we optimize what's happening outside the gym to make more room for what's happening inside the gym. I think that is a much more productive use of our time, because it puts us into this abundance mentality, which if we talk about, developing healthy nutrition habits and things like that, even like fixing disordered eating behaviors, it's switching out of a restrictive mentality or a scarcity mentality into one of abundance. So instead of thinking about like how little can I do, how much can I do so that I am forced to go to bed earlier, wake up at the same time, eat cleaner food, manage my stress better.
100%.
I think that's just a much more healthy mindset to approach it with, and more than likely will lead you to benefiting from other things in your life, which is ultimately what we do as coaches, right? We use training and nutrition as a vehicle for personal development outside the gym. So if we can anchor our lifestyle outside the gym to this tremendously intense effort inside the gym, would that not behoove a situation where we get better results?
100%. It's like, why would we not take care of all of the other metrics outside of that to increase our ability to respond to fatigue? Like there, and we're going to get pushback on that because people are like, well, you don't know my situation and you don't know what I go through and you don't know how busy I am, this, that, and the other. It's like, look, the way my life is set up right now, yeah, I probably have it easier than a lot of people. I work from right here, right? Like this is what I do. So, but look at how many other jobs I had prior to this where I still did this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you tack on that 4-year-old who keeps popping in here and like all these other things. Like, look, I'm probably just as busy as a lot of other people. There's a lot of reasons that I could sit here and make an excuse and go, well, I can't do that today because of this. But because I built my life around figuring out how to structure all of this other stuff that I just enjoy doing, it forces me to like create a flow to my day that allows me to be able to move through a program and make progress towards something.
Well, bro, like I fucking love training. If I could spend 5 hours in the gym training, I totally would. Like if there was enough time in my day where I could just train for 5 hours a day, I totally would.
Agreed, man.
But so that's another disconnect. It's like, why are we trying to find ways to do less of the thing that we find the most fun?
100%. And like, whatever happened to just getting a sick pump? Like,
Oh,
look, my
dude.
thing is like, look, yeah, I can get a pump from 8 reps, but like, there's nothing quite like getting like a 20-25 rep burn on a lateral raise or a bicep curl or tricep extension or quad extension or whatever, man. Like, sometimes just that burn is just something that you've got to chase. And at the same time, we can sit here and talk about these studies that 8 reps does this and 8 reps does that or whatever. Some of the best progress that I ever got in my leg size was going through a phase of doing ridiculously high rep sets, right? And so I did it on the pendulum squat because I hate myself, and I would do one set. And the way I started it is I picked a weight and I would do 20 reps,
Mhm.
right? I would go up the next week until I got to a weight that I couldn't hit 20. And then
Mhm.
I would build it until I could get 20. And I would only go up until it was over 20. And by the end of that, I did 5.5 plates for 13 reps. And like, you can't tell me that there's not progress being made there. Like, sure, you can talk about like, oh, you just got to the burn and dropped it. It's like, no, come watch those fucking videos with me. I'm could pretty much tell you something happened when I did that session.
I've
So
st-
you're telling me just because I burned out and got really tired that it did nothing for my muscle at all, that everything I did was a waste of time?
I've been trying to find ways to like challenge myself, especially with lower body training, because there's still a lot of fear around lower body training for
I'm
me.
sure.
So one of the strategies that I'll use either on the leg press or the pendulum is I'll do a top set of 8 to 12 with a 3-second pause in the bottom. And then whatever number of reps I get with that, I have to double it on the second set. And
Brutal.
I can rest at the top for 3 deep breaths. So like
Brutal.
I'll turn it into a mile rep set, but I take away the tempo. So there's
Right.
no fear
Just move
associated
it.
with that bottom
Yeah.
position anymore because I know I can do 8 to 12. And that, like, dude, they're brutal sets. But
But go tell somebody you did that online and you made no progress, Paul. You did nothing. You
I
didn't
think
get close to failure and didn't make tension. Like
so.
that's exactly how people look at this. And it's like, you're telling me that the experience that Paul went through meant nothing.
Well, so here's where I now have proof of concept because we're 9 months post double quad tears and my legs are bigger than they were before.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the majority of that was spent doing a lot of metabolic work, a lot of blood flow restriction work, a lot of high repetition sets. And, similar to what you were saying about arm training, like one of my favorite things to do for delts and arms is like big giant sets. So I'll do like 3 or 4 exercises in a row for delts and I'll do like a prone dumbbell swing into a prone dumbbell rear delt fly into an incline lateral raise into some sort of overhead press.
Sounds
And
fun.
they're brutal sets, and it's all 12 to 15 reps for each exercise to failure, right? Mechanical tension to failure. My delts are growing like crazy,
Yep.
and they have to because my waist is 8 feet wide. So like, and that's
Sorry.
not to say, listen, I also do heavy overhead pressing. So this isn't an if this, then that.
Yeah.
It's a this and that conversation. You can do both of those things. Like I can do a heavy 8 to 12 on one set and then a super hard high repetition on the next set, even with this within the same exercise, the same workout.
Yep. And
So finding ways to integrate it's also really fucking fun.
yeah, 100%. Like I think people just completely like they just look at things at a vacuum, and then it's like, this is what it is, and it's like,
Nailed
okay,
it.
well,
Yep.
spend some years doing this for yourself and then for others, and see if that's true, if that holds up or not, right? Because like as far as training goes, I've tried just about everything at this point, with as long as I've been doing this, and like there's a lot of different things that work, and there's a lot of different things that don't work. But the thing that I've come to find over a period of time is like, look, we use our hands all day. They're always doing something. They're used to doing a lot of reps. And a great way to get shoulders and arms to grow is do a heavy weight for high reps, right? And heavy for that rep range. Like I didn't want to go in and brutalize myself today. So most of my workout was like 15 plus reps today, just pumping everything, shoulders, chest, arms, whatever. And I loved it. It was great. I feel awesome right now. My arms still feel pumped up. My shoulders still feel a little tight. And it's like, this feels really good. Does that mean that that hour that I spent lifting was just a complete waste of time? No.
Yes.
What people would say for sure. It's very, very interesting. And one of the hardest things that I'm sure you can attest to as well is like when you encounter a client who is like seeing this information and not really sure what to make heads or tails of it, and they're like wondering why is this right and why is this wrong, and it's like, well, the thing is it's none of it's right, none of it's wrong, because we don't know what the context is. And nothing is right or wrong until there's context applied to that information, right? So it's like it only ever matters based on what's right in front of us. And like, unless they figure out how to do a scientific study on every human, like you're just not going to have data on what works best. You're going to have to do the bro sciencey thing and go to the gym and go, cool, I'm going to try this for a little while. Okay, well, that was good, but maybe I can do this to make it better. And you just keep tweaking it. And over the time that you've spent training, the time I've spent training, we now have this library of things that we can use because we're not afraid of tools. And it's like people get terrified to use other tools that haven't had a study done. And it's like, just because it's not studied doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that they either can't recreate it, they can't do it because of the confines of what it is, or it just doesn't make sense, right? Like they can't study the individuals, right?
So one of the things that I'm very big on, and just in life in general, is like I call it intellectual consistency. So if you're going to make an argument for one area based purely on science, then you need to apply that same methodology to every other decision that you make in your life. So are you going to sit here and tell me that you're going to make an evidence-based decision that you're going to only train to, let's just use the 8 reps thing. You're going to only train to 8 reps because science says so, but then you're going to go bang 1,000 tests.
Yeah.
And I'm like, insert 1,000 anything, but there's no studies on guys or girls taking large doses of anabolics. And there's not studies on, there are competition prep studies. Like I will give that to the science community. But there is no situation in which bodybuilding or powerlifting or anything related will stay in health and fitness, where the actual people, boots on the ground, doing the thing aren't 20 years ahead of science.
Yep.
I love the fact that my background is in athletic performance because it exposed me to a lot of different training tools. And then when I translated that into the way that I coach for powerlifting, and now into the way that I coach for bodybuilding, I have a massive toolbox of ways that we can accomplish things, which for me and my clients is tremendous. And so when I get that client who has those questions, it opens up a very important dialogue that will improve the coach-athlete relationship because it's had in an intellectually honest manner. 100%. You and I are very similar in the fact that we actively seek opportunities to be proven wrong because that's how we grow and learn. When you take a hard-nosed, this is the answer, I'll put it to you this way. I know very few things in my life to be 100% true. Okay? If you would have told me, Paul, if you tear both your quads, it's going to hurt really bad. I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. Guess what? It didn't hurt at all. It hurt 0. So, okay, let's apply that. Yeah, it hurt 0. It did not hurt at all until after I had the surgery.
I don't want to find out.
Okay. Now, don't.
Let you tell me that one.
11 out of 10, do not recommend. Now, you could say, Paul, if you hit your hand with a hammer, it's going to hurt really bad. I don't know if that's true because I'm not going to hit myself in the hand with a hammer. And I know that tearing my quads didn't hurt. So in my head, I'm like, I don't really want to take that chance. So apply that broadly. It's like, do you know anything in your life to be certain 100% of the time without trying it? No, you don't. So let's try things. Let's throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And again, bring back the Olympians ideas, like if all of them train differently and have gotten to the highest pinnacle of physique development possible, should that not tell you that there's a larger opportunity to try more tools?
The craziest version of this that is a trend now is to say, like, clip out something of like Jay training or Lee Priest training or whatever and be like, look how bad his form was. It's like, motherfucker, the bicep is the size of your head. What are you talking about? Maybe you need to shut up and listen to what he's doing, because it obviously did something,
I
right?
think
And like,
it's just trying to get attention, man.
yeah, for sure.
Those people who use other people as an example, like, so if I'm using a Sam Sulik video to communicate something that proves a point that I'm trying to make, that's, in my opinion, just very bad messaging, because it's capitalizing on someone else's fame to try and make me popular, which in itself is parasitic.
Yep.
Right. So I don't want to be associated with that at all. But number two, it's discrediting someone who's achieved something pretty phenomenal,
100%.
which should be celebrated.
Yep.
You know, I can't get behind any of the negativity that happens. And that's why you'll never see negativity on my page tearing anyone down, because it's just not what I want to be known for.
Right.
And I don't think it sends the right message to the people that I work with, that, you know, that I, just in general, I don't want any of that in my life.
Right. And like, I just, it's a very closed minded way to look at things and go, well, that person has achieved the thing that I want to try and somewhat emulate, and be like, oh, you're wrong because my book says so, or this study says so. Right. It's like, well, okay, maybe within the context of what you're doing, some of what you're doing is great. Maybe you could be doing something that guy is that would work really well for you. So it's like,
Yeah.
why does it need to be like I'm in this camp or this camp? It's like, why can't we cross pollinate these camps? Why can't there be multiple schools of thought here, where it's like, if I'm a construction worker, like, do I want to limit myself to like, hey, the only tool I can use is a sledgehammer? So, well, you're going to have a really hard time pouring concrete if the only tool you have is a sledgehammer, right? Like that doesn't really make sense. So it's like the tool, a sledgehammer can be a great tool if we need to sledgehammer something. Like, if that's what it's used for, then great, fantastic. That's an awesome opportunity for us. But if we need a drill, that sledgehammer is not going to do shit. It's going to do the exact opposite. And it's going to probably mess up whatever we're trying to do. Right. So it's like, why remove tools, even if it's a tool that is so specific that you use it 1 out of 100 times?
Yeah.
Why remove it? Because it's an opportunity to help you move forward. If it's a tool that helps you get better and get the results like we were talking about earlier in the episode, why would we not have it at our disposal?
I think so one of the things that I try to do whenever I see something online that maybe runs counter to my beliefs is I try to steelman the argument. I try to say, okay, in what situation or context could this be true? And usually, if not most of the time, I can find a way. I can definitely steelman an argument for any of the things that I see online. The exception might be Joel Seedman. And like training 90-degree metrics on me. But
that guy's funny.
I think at this point he's just trolling. But I hope so too.
I hope so.
But if you're able to do that to everything, that just puts, again, more tools in your toolbox.
Yep.
And I think the more we are able to steelman these arguments and integrate them into our own philosophies, we are better able to serve our clients, but we're also able to have better conversations with them. We're better able to explain the methodologies that we are implementing. Where the other thing that I started thinking about this probably within the last 6 months, is the clients that we're getting are coming to us with so much more information than they ever did before, which I think is a great thing, even if that information is flawed. Because it allows us to have a basis of knowledge to further expand upon, rather than integrating them into only what we do.
Yep.
So if that's the case, you as a coach need to take the ownership to say, I need to be as educated as possible on everything that's happening so that I can show my clients that the reason they're doing what they're doing is valuable or is valid. Um, and I think that leads into like where you and I chatted about before is like that conversation with the client is the most important part about building relationships,
Yep.
and how we communicate information that may challenge their beliefs and show them that, like you said, nothing is right or wrong, but it might be right or wrong for them
Yep.
at this point in time.
Yep. I just had this conversation with my mentee client that I mentioned earlier, and we were talking about this of like he's coming from another trainer who was very, very heavily science based, and
Mhm.
like everything he did was dictated based off like what the science said, and like there because of that there is a big difference in how I have him execute, what I have him doing supplementation wise, and what I have him doing nutritionally. There's minor differences.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he has is all still good and valid information. But the only way we find out whether this works better or this works better is to do it. Right. Whenever somebody comes and talks and goes, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about me implementing this?" It's like, okay, well, have you tried it? No. All right. Well, we don't know until we know. Like
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate reality is like you kind of just have to try things and see if it works. Now we should be basing that off of what we think is going to be the most right thing. But there's been a million times where I'm like, I think this is the right method to go with this person. And then we start to see what happens to the person over time. And it's like, that was the wrong decision. We gotta shift directions. So it's like you have to be able to pivot,
Mhm.
and that's when having a plethora of tools comes in handy because now I can shift things. I might have to find a tool that I have never used ever, but it's still there because I can grab it. Right. And that's what matters. And the thing that I told him is like coaches are the directors of the movie of what you're trying to do.
I like
You
that.
are the actor, right? You have come in and well, you're the actor. You're the one who came up with the idea for the movie, and you're saying this is what I want to do, and then it's my responsibility to look at the entire story so that it makes sense across the timeline. That's what I have to do, and I have to keep you on track. So all I want you to do is focus on that scene that is in front of you. What do I need to do to accomplish this to make sure that this thing fits to the rest of it? Right?
Mhm.
That's all I need you to do. And I'm going to take care of this. But if you start to get lost in the weeds and you can't do what you think you need to do for that scene in this idea, cool. Let's talk about it. And let me explain to you why I'm having you do A, because I want to eventually get to Z. And we have to go through the alphabet to do that. We have to go through these different things, right? And we have to navigate it in the right order, or else it could fall apart, right? And it could be something that we just end up spinning our wheels. So we have to have that 50,000 foot view and look at the whole thing as this orchestra that we're trying to move in that direction, right?
Mhm.
So it's like the most important aspect to what we do is taking all this information that's out there and helping somebody understand how that piece of the puzzle fits into what they're trying to do, if at all, or if it's a piece to a different puzzle that's over there. And like maybe you'll build that puzzle at some point, so hold on to it, right?
Mhm.
But like, what are we doing right now? And let's get this portion of it done, right? So that we can do the next thing.
Yeah, there's an element in there that is always interesting to me because what's right for somebody right now might not be what's right for somebody in a year
Yep.
or even in 2 weeks. And the ability to trust a coach to navigate that journey with you is incredibly important. And so everything that we do within our coaching process should be geared towards how can I build trust? How can I keep that trust? And how can I continue to make that trust even stronger? And I think the worst thing that we could potentially do that might impact that trust negatively is to be dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
100%.
you look at the evil villains across time. They're all dogmatic. They're all dogmatic leaders, closed off to other opportunities or information. They believe that everything they do is correct, and that to me speaks volumes to the way that we interact as people. Because at the end of the day, we're coaching people and people are going to do people things. And that coach athlete relationship is built on trust. If you discount or diminish the feelings of your athlete when they ask you questions and make them feel stupid, that is going to erode all of the trust that you work to build.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a collaborative element, just like, actor, director.
Yep.
The director is going to say, hey, this is how the scene's going to go. You're going to run through that scene. And as the actor, you're going to provide feedback to the director. And it's the director's job to use that feedback to continue to move the scene forward.
100%.
So that's why I love that analogy that you used, because it's so applicable to that coach athlete relationship.
Right. And then the other part of that analogy that I like a lot is like, how many scenes in movies have we seen where you find out after the fact that it was completely ad lib from the actor? Like the famous thing that everybody talks about is like Heath Ledger when he was the Joker and the hospital was supposed to blow up behind him and like the thing didn't work right. And like his natural reaction is what we saw on screen. That wasn't supposed to be written. So you can't tell me that like, oh, you know what? I made a decision to try this today and it worked out fantastic. Cool. Let's have a conversation about that and see if that's something that we can work into this that makes sense long term. If not, cool. You did something fancy for the day, then cool, move on. Right. But sometimes going off script is the best thing we can possibly do. Right. Because we now start to apply something and get real data versus just, well, it could do this for you. Right. Because it's like you can have all of these studies about this supplement does this, or this training style does this, or this food does this, but in that individual, maybe that's not what happens, right? Maybe it doesn't work in our in a positive direction, right? So it's like we got to be able to pivot and that sort of thing. And I think it's completely correct what you're saying, that we have to, even if the question seems like it should be obvious, it needs to be something that we answer and go, no, here's my thoughts. And like, just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's obvious to somebody who's just getting started or like only has a few years under their belt. So it's like, you have to explain these things. And it doesn't, just because you're explaining yourself and talking and telling them like, yeah, I like your perspective on this, but here's why I have it this way. Like that doesn't need to be an argument now. Right.
No.
And if the coach is having this dogmatic view on things and goes, well, no, this is the way I do this and this is how it's always worked, that tells me that that person is closed off. They're closed-minded to anything else that could come along that could help them. And to me, a client hires me because they are looking to better themselves in some manner. I think that it is a great thing for your clients to see you trying to better yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Right? I think that is super, super important. And that comes in a million different aspects of like, I'm trying to figure out how to better my training. I'm trying to figure out how to better my nutrition. I'm trying to figure out how to better my lifestyle. I'm trying to figure out how to better my sleep. I am doing all the same things you are and experimenting and seeing what works. Right.
Yeah.
And there is something to that. Then at the same time, I'm also trying to make my coaching better. So why would I avoid that guy who has this weird thinking over here when I could have a conversation with him and maybe cherry pick something out of there that I'm like, all right, well, most of this stuff I don't like at all, but this thing right here is a chunk of gold that I can steal and I can use that in some manner. And I have done that for the last 15 years that I've been doing this. And I've navigated this of like, taking little pieces to the puzzle from each little person and kind of put them into my own thing. And that's what we have to do. That's what everyone has to do. And like my style of training versus how I diet somebody versus how I supplement somebody versus like insert whatever you want can vary very minimally from Paul. Right. And like we don't have to do the same exact thing and we still end up getting a similar result with our people. Like you put out great clients and I put out great clients, and then we could bring in however other many coaches we want to and see the same thing. There might be similarities, but there's going to be minor differences across the spectrum just because of our viewpoint of what's happening in front of us. Right.
Yeah. I also come back to like, if we're going to make evidence-based decisions based on research in and of itself is flawed in that, methodologies will vary, controls will vary, those types of things. But the information, the results that are presented in research are the means, right? They're the top of the bell curve, which means that there are some people who had negative adaptations to that stimulus. There are some people who were super responders to that stimulus. And so when you're looking at research, if you understand that and realize that very few of your clients are going to be at the top of that bell curve, they're going to be on either end of the spectrum. So it's important for you to understand all the nuances that could be potentially impacting their adaptation to whatever it is that you're doing. And then again, further having those conversations with them about it and getting their feedback on how they are perceptively engaging within this intervention that you're working with them on. And ultimately, to me, coaching has always been collaborative and always will be collaborative. It's never going to be like
Not a
authoritarian.
dictatorship.
It's not a dictatorship. And then further to that, like when we look at some of the best coaches, I do come back to strength training, like in powerlifting, because it's a much less complicated group of variables, right? Because we're just analyzing one repetition max. So if you're able to progress in one repetition max, you did something right. And so you look at guys like Louis Simmons and Mike Tashir, and I'm going to name a lot of powerlifting coaches that your audience probably have no idea who they are.
I won't know who they are.
But the point that I'm trying to make is they all read the same books.
Yep.
They all read the same studies. But the way in which they interpreted and implemented the results from that research, those books, those studies, is going to be drastically different. Does that mean any of them are incorrect? No, absolutely not. They just made different inferences about the same information and applied it uniquely to their situations with the people that are in front of them. And if we can take that same open-minded approach in the way that we operate, number one, it's going to lead to so many more incredible discoveries. And number two, it's going to allow us to ask better questions. And I think that aspect of knowledge transfer is super important. So if you're able to look at a conversation with somebody who potentially you might disagree with, right? If that conversation allows you to ask better questions about your own process, it sets you up for growth in the future. Any discussion about any topic should not be a discussion on who's right and who's wrong. It should be a discussion on how can we together come to the truth. And if it's a quest for truth, then that really has no loser in it. The only loser is the person who's attached to their emotions. And I, quite frankly, don't want to be associated with that person, so I just don't.
Yep.
And I mean, if you're looking for a coach or an educator or a mentor who's going to be able to give you all the answers, I don't want to be that guy.
Yep.
Cut and dry.
Find the answer.
I will find an answer.
Yep.
And I will be able to determine based on the feedback and the results that I'm getting if it was the correct one.
Yep.
And I will know what steps to take based on the feedback and the answers that I'm getting. But if you're looking for the answer that applies to all of the people all of the time, that doesn't exist. So stop looking for it.
The secret is that there is no secret. There's no answer to these things. And it's just weird when people be like, well, the answer is here in the science. It's like, okay, all right, well, that's fine. What about all the other things that we can't explain via science? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And like, you can't study every single different type of variation of like, all right, I execute this way and I execute this way. And it's like, okay, so why do you decide that this one's better than this one? Right.
My favorite actually, like coming back to intellectual consistency, it's like, okay, it's always the evidence-based guys who are number one, skinny and weak. But then those are going to be the first guys who are like, bro, I'm going to take MOTC and SS31 and all these different SARMs. I'm like, where is the evidence?
Yeah.
There's more evidence in taking a Gramatren than there is in any of that stuff. Try that. I would rather try that first.
Yeah, I heard somebody talk about a post that they made that was like, if you look like you hardly train, you might hardly train. Right. And it's like there's something to that, and it's like, look, man, you can't discount that somebody can be new to this and not have built a ton of results yet. But then it's like, well, then why are you even speaking about this online? Because you have no information to give me. Like well, not no information. There's always something you can gather from those people. But
Yeah.
like, why are you talking like you're an expert on the subject when you only have a few years in this? So
And
maybe you just shut your mouth and try some different things.
I say it in jest, in that, like, the science-based guys are weak and small, but there has to be some element of skin in the game before you start to teach.
Yep.
Um,
That's what we've lost.
I always come back to, like, when I got into powerlifting, I remember, so I had done a few meets while I was a strength coach in the US. And when I moved back to Ottawa, I started training at a powerlifting club. And it just so happened that at that time, the owners of the powerlifting club and the other, like, their best friend, all trained there. It was Jay Nira, who is the best lifter at 220 in the world, Willie Albert, who is the best lifter at 181 in the world, and Cade Weber, who is the number one lifter at 242 in the world. And they were all in the same gym, and I was training with them. For the first 6 months I trained there, I had to show up at noon and load their plates so that I could train at 2.
Yeah.
And I'm 25 years old at this time. I'm not a child.
Proving ground.
Right? I've already squatted 600 in a meet, so I had to earn my keep.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me does believe that we need some sort of hierarchy to it, but I'm not so ego driven that I don't believe I can't learn something from everyone. Right. And even if the thing I learn is that person's full of shit,
yeah,
I still learned it.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to be that guy who walks the walk. Like you mentioned, like, as a coach, I want to be the product of my product.
Mm-hmm.
So if my product is helping people get jacked, stay lean, be super strong, have a really fulfilling home life, run a successful business. If I'm not doing those things or actively pursuing doing those things, in my opinion, I have no right to teach it. Mm-hmm. Like I've always said, like, I actually just had a client come to me within the last, I think we've been working together for 3 months, but he's about a year older than me. He wants to break the Masters world record in powerlifting at 242. He's very close. But the reason he came to me was he kept getting injured on his squat, and he knows that I've squatted over 800 and he wants to squat over 800. So he's coming to me because I've been where he wants to go.
Yep.
And I think in most cases, I look at our clients that we acquire along a spectrum. They are either where we were at some point in the past, or they want to be where we are now.
Yep.
And their skill set's going to vary based on where along that spectrum that we acquire them. But ultimately, we need to be the pinnacle with which they're trying to strive for. And that's a tremendous responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think that's lost on a lot of people. I think the other piece of responsibility that's lost on a lot of people is the impact that we can have on individuals outside the gym. Liv and I got an email from one of our clients. I was working with her for about 3 years. Then I transferred her over to working with Olivia, and she's going through a really challenging time. Both her mom and her stepdad were both diagnosed with cancer 4 days apart.
Jeez.
Which is horrible. And I might get emotional talking about it, but the email essentially boiled down to, she's able to support her mom because of the lessons that we taught her about resilience.
Yep.
Through our work together in training and nutrition.
Yep.
And I don't know what I could have said, done, showed her, taught her to be able to navigate 2 of your parents being diagnosed with terminal cancer at the same time. But I did. And I don't say this to flex because I truly don't know what I said. But that to me showed me 2 things. Number 1, my problems are bullshit. They're not real problems. And number 2, we have a tremendous responsibility to the people that we work with. And 100%. I think at any point, if we close ourselves off to any level of personal growth, knowledge, practice, I think we're doing our clients a disservice. And as coaches, we have to put our clients first.
Yep.
That's
a closed-minded mindset is going to mess everyone up. It's going to mess you up. It's going to mess up the people around you. Like you have to always be trying to navigate and learn these things. And I think the easiest way to sum up everything we've been saying here is like the only right answer is results, right? Like I don't care what your study says. I truly don't. What I care about is what happened when I applied that thing to this client.
It
And
gives
that's
us
it.
a starting point.
And
I think research is beneficial because it gives us a starting point.
yep,
But it's where you go from that starting point, and it is going to be purely based on the individual's
right.
response.
100%. And it's very interesting how like, and a lot of it's just social media driven because like hyperbolic, very directed, like confident speaking is what ends up getting attention these days. It's like anybody can sound like they know what they're talking about when they just speak confidently, like they speak intense. And this is what I believe, but it's really, really easy to sound super confident when you are talking by yourself and there is no one there to like push back on your thoughts. Right?
It's one
It's
of the reasons I
really
love
easy
my
to do that.
podcast. That's one of the
Right.
reasons I love my podcast because, like,
Yep.
I have people on all the time who definitely confirm my biases, like without question. Like, we're doing a podcast here today, we agree on everything. But there are people who push me outside my comfort zone and force me to ask questions about the things that I'm doing to really dial into, like, am I making the right decisions?
Mm-hmm.
And those conversations to me are the most valuable because, truth be told, I don't need my biases confirmed. They're my biases. It does help to get the validation that, like, other people I respect who maybe have achieved greater things than me so far in my career are doing the same things that I'm doing. So it lets me know I'm on the right track. But at the end of the day, I'm more so interested in the things that I'm doing wrong.
Where are my gaps?
Where are my
Yep.
gaps? Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
going to highlight those gaps? Yep, for sure, man. Yeah, I had a thought there and I just completely lost it as soon as I went to talk. But yeah, I completely agree. It's like we always have to just be looking for these other things, and the people I keep closest to me are always going to be the ones that'll highlight something. I'm like, well, did you think about it this way?
Hold
Right?
my
And
feet
like
to the fire, man.
that's
Hold my
yeah,
feet to the fire.
100%. And like again, yeah, it's great for you and me to have a conversation here about like something we agree on, right? Because it feels good, right?
Mhm.
But like at the same time, we've also realized that like that could all change at a moment's notice. Like I could
I hope it
learn
does.
something that could be the next thing, right? And like that could be a completely counterintuitive thing to what I've already been doing. So it's
Totally.
we're always navigating and adapting that stuff. Yeah, I forgot what that thought was. I was going to say something. I completely lost it. So I guess we'll just cut it there on me completely brain farting.
All good,
um,
brother.
but yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on here because I'm always wondering. It's like when I see these things, it's like, am I the only one seeing this? It's like, no, I'm
No.
not. But um, yeah, dude, I appreciate your time, especially with all the craziness you've had going on right now with the move and whatnot.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Anytime I get a chance to chat with you, it's always a good time. Always, get an opportunity to, voice my thoughts. And I mean, your podcast audience probably isn't familiar with who I am. They might not know who pauloneid is. So if I can get exposed to new people,
Yeah,
I'm
100%,
happy.
man. Yeah, I always like bringing more people into this because there's always just a different perspective. Like we might agree on the same things, but you might have a different lens to look at it on, And if you don't follow Paul and you're watching this, make sure you go follow Paul. Go follow Paul. My mouth just did not want to say that.
All good, brother.
Paul's been a good buddy for a long time, and him and his wife are both crushing it right now. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm super excited to see her pro debut this year, man. So I appreciate you as always. For anyone who is still here, thank you. Watching all the way through helps me out a ton. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, do all that fun stuff, and we will see you on the next one.